If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Now, we've all heard this before. Unfortunately, in far too many cases, it resulted in massive lawsuits. Investors have sued custodial companies that were supposed to be holding their silver. They were scammed into thinking they owned physical silver when they really didn't. And when the companies were exposed, investors were settled in fiat cash. They never got their metals. We're going to talk about that and more, so stay tuned. How you doing, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of the Silver and Gold Stack Attack. Hope everyone's doing well, and I'd like to thank you for checking out the latest video here at the channel. I hope you folks had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Ours started off just fine, but we ended up having a rough day since we lost one of our four-legged family members. She was a 12-year-old boxer and pretty much the love of our lives. You know, it's always difficult to lose a pet because we treat them like family. Anyone you listen to right now who's had to go through that knows exactly how difficult that is. But I want to give a huge shout out to Patriotic Stacker. He was the only one in my YouTube circle who knew anything about it, and he kept calling to check in on me. Much appreciated, brother. Time heals all, and we'll get there eventually. But enough of that. Anyway, if you're here today, I appreciate your visit. And as always, if you'd like to help support the channel, then why not jab that thumbs up button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Look, the way you guys have grown this channel for me just blows me away. You guys are the best. And also another welcome shout out to the newest subscribers. Appreciate you. Alright, so let's get to the video. As I said in the intro, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And we're going to talk today about custodial storage, or in other words, ordering your silver through another company who stores it for you in their vault, or a vault that they designate. And there are quite a few of these companies out there, so this isn't a new practice or anything. Now, while the majority of these companies do a reputable business, I'm going to highlight three that just didn't do the right thing. And they ended up screwing over investors who thought they had gold and silver. Now, please keep in mind, I'm not trying to convince anyone that custodial storage is bad. I'm only giving a few examples of where they went wrong, so don't panic and demand delivery of your metals because of anything you see on YouTube. If that's how you're rolling, you're probably fine. All right, that said, let's get it. All right, first up, Morgan Stanley. Back in 2005, they paid out $4.4 million to settle a class action lawsuit with brokerage clients who bought precious metals and paid storage fees, according to the court filing. The suit alleged that Morgan Stanley told clients it was selling them precious metals that they would own in full, and that the company would store them for a monthly fee. But Morgan Stanley either made no investment specifically on behalf of those clients, or even worse, it made entirely different investments of lesser value and security. Now, naturally, Morgan Stanley was ignorant until the end, saying, quote, "While we deny the allegations, we settled the case to avoid the cost and distraction of continued litigation." Ah, you gotta love it. According to the filing, Morgan Stanley argued that there were no violations of law and no default or failure to perform or deliver precious metals. All right, let's fast forward to 2011. A similar incident took place when an investor who thought he'd purchased 10 100-ounce silver bars from the Swiss bank UBS in 1984 got tired of paying storage fees at $25 a month, so he tried to arrange physical delivery of his metals, and that did not go so well. UBS continually gave him a runaround and frustrated him to the point where he asked for the serial numbers that were on his bars. The bank advised that, hey, there are no serial numbers. Now, on a side note, there most certainly would have been. Now, after more runarounds, the bank told the investor that his only option was to sell the non-existent bars back to the bank for cash. The investor refused and ended up suing UBS because he didn't want to close out his silver position for fiat cash. Long story short, the bank was allegedly taking investor money for precious metal orders without purchasing any precious metals. It also charged monthly storage fees for that same non-existent silver. Talk about balls of steel. Even worse, UBS was allegedly using investor money for its own purposes. Now, they only settled the lawsuit in cash because, well, hell, they were caught red-handed in the act of screwing over investors. The charges in the lawsuit accused UBS of never purchasing, segregating, or storing the phantom silver, while illegally charging storage fees for basically air and empty shelf space. And lastly, a company called MF Global was supposedly storing precious metals on behalf of investors. And like UBS, those investors never got that metal when they demanded delivery. They ended up settling in cash because MFG couldn't produce the metals. Now, why is this an issue if they were settling in cash? Well, investors were putting money into bullion ETFs to protect themselves from suffering currency losses on their unbacked fiat currencies. And they ended up getting nothing out of their bullion investments other than more unbacked fiat currency. You can see where the frustration stems from. And again, on top of that, with a similar theme, they were being charged storage fees for metals that didn't even exist. So there you have it, 3 examples of companies screwing over investors, but there have been far more cases of these companies closing down and never returning any metals to their investors. And when these companies were experiencing serious issues, investors naturally began calling to take delivery on their physical metals. And the places just ended up shutting down and settling in cash. Now, scenarios like this are the reason stackers have trouble trusting any custodial storages with their metals. Having 100% ownership of your metals is the stronger play when it comes down to it, because even if you have legal paperwork that substantiates your deposit of metals, you really don't know if it's even there unless you go and personally request an inspector check. So these people that thought they had ownership of precious metals with these storage places ended up not having any metals at all. And basically when the companies were called out, they couldn't back up what they were supposed to have in storage. And this really exposes the risk of not having physical possession of your precious metals. Now, one last issue of buying precious metals through a custodial storage is this. Even though you might have a certificate that says you have X amount of silver bars in a vault, you really have no idea how many other certificates have been issued for that same amount of bars. What they're doing is they're banking on the majority of investors not showing up to take physical delivery on their metals and just selling their certificates back to the company. It's such a scam when you think about it, but other than fines and a slap on the wrist, nothing typically gets done about it. The manipulation just continues to run rampant, with very few companies being held accountable for their actions. All right, let's start wrapping this video up. Now, when it comes to storage, look, there are several ways that you can store your precious metals within your own property. And the reality is you're far better off taking immediate delivery and storing it yourself, as long as you can safely do so. And it may be possible to insure your precious metals, since sometimes they're covered under your homeowner's insurance. If that's the case, you need to check with your insurance provider to see if your metals are covered for their current worth. Because another disadvantage of relying on home insurance is that these policies often limit the amount of valuation assigned to your metals, and usually only up to a $2,500 total. Now, some insurance companies will allow homeowners to increase the coverage amounts for like special items of value such as jewelry, sterling silver, and other precious metals, but the process can be long, drawn out, and generally difficult. And insuring your precious metal valuables will vary between insurance providers, but a common method is to add a rider or an endorsement to your current homeowner's policy. An endorsement can be a worthwhile investment because it typically has a really low annual cost and no deductible. Another option is purchasing what's known as a floater policy. Floater covers any kind of loss, even one that the homeowner's policy won't cover, such as misplacing a valuable coin. And any items, here's the catch, any items that fall under a floater must be professionally appraised. So you're going to have to pay for that. But this does give you a broader coverage and a higher coverage limit. And lastly, what about safe deposit boxes for storage? Quite a few out there will recommend this as a means of storage, but I'm not one of them. I like to have my stuff with me physically. You have to keep in mind that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC for short, does not insure the contents of those safe deposit boxes. And hell, on top of that, a good majority of banks don't insure those contents either, whether it be from theft, natural disaster, war, destruction, none of that. So if you decide to go this route and the bank doesn't offer insurance, you're going to want to buy your own policy. You might be able to cover these metals through an optional add-on to your homeowner's insurance, and that's known as a scheduled personal property endorsement. Every year there are thousands of bullion buyers, jewelry, and coin collectors who unknowingly believe that since they rent a safe deposit box from a bank, that they're somehow insured from loss. And that belief is simply not true given the facts. Look, even bank employees don't know what you keep in that box because you're allowed to open it up in private. And as a result, there is no way to know the value of what you have stored inside. Items in there could be worth millions, or you could have air. And for that reason, banks don't offer insurance on those contents. Alright, so there you have it. Now, one more thing. Whether you store your gold or silver at home or off-site, make sure 2 trusted people know about the location. You don't want your precious metals to become lost if you become incapacitated or, God forbid, pass away. Now remember, if you don't hold it, you might not own it. What are your thoughts on storing precious metals? Sound off. Give a shout. I love reading the comments. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Silver and Gold Stack Attack. And if you made it this far, well, kudos to you. I will definitely catch up with you in the next episode, but in the meantime...
What do you want to do with your life?
I love that. Damn right, get stacked. Stay safe and be well, everyone. I am out of here. Peace, folks.
Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes.